You're watching NewsX. I'm Uday Pratap Singh. We are now less than a month away from elections, and two reports have come out trying to smack and bash India. In one report, which is titled World Happiness Index, India is ranked 126 and is worse than Pakistan, Iraq and even Ukraine and Palestine, two countries ravaged with war. Another report says that India's richest 1% hold 40% of its wealth, and the inequality in wealth is worse than colonial times. The World Happiness Report, published by an initiative of the United Nations called Sustainable Development Solutions Network, while the Inequality Index comes from US-based research group World Inequality Lab. Basic mathematics shows that the net worth of three of the richest US men, Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg and their companies, have wealth equal to the GDP of India. And if you look from the prism of India, a lot has been done, be it moving 24 crore people out of multidimensional poverty with over 1 crore free houses, free ration to 80 crore people and over 50 crore new Jan Dhan accounts. Joining us at this point is Ambassador Manju Seth, former diplomat. We also have Mitali Nikore, economic analyst, joining us live. Gautam Mukherjee, senior journalist, also joins us live. Madhav Nalapat, editorial director of the Sunday Guardian, is also with us on the broadcast. Madhav Nalapat, what do you make of these shockingly biased reports?
Look, there's nothing shocking about it because they like to basically create a sensation. And knocking India has been a common pastime in several of these so-called think tanks and so-called groups. That, for example, this whole concept of X percentage of income. You have a large informal sector in India. How are you going to compute that? And you have a large number of resources in India that, if you look at it in terms of market pricing, the pricing is much lower than the actual value of the goods, certainly in purchasing power parity terms. So frankly, to talk in terms of accurate the indexing in this form is absurd. As far as happiness is concerned, I'm sure that whoever wrote that index believes that having bombs rained on you every day, having your houses destroyed, having your towns destroyed, having your young people go and fight wars and be horribly, if I may say so, some terrible things happen to them. I'm sure they believe that is happiness. And for some people, that will be happiness. There's no question about it. If anyone is involved in psychiatry here, then I'm sure they'll identify the syndromes in which that is extreme happiness. Having bombs fall on you, having your country at war, having houses destroyed, having all the people around you killed by shrapnel. It's the most intense of happiness. There's no question about it. So I would only say, Uday, that I think it's great fun. It's very amusing. And I'm glad there is some humor in today's day and age. I think all these reports have to be read. The way you read, comic books and cartoons, have fun while you read it because they're nothing if not funny and they're absolutely absurd.
Yes, Ambassador Manju Seth, is that how we should react and respond to these reports? Is there any semblance of truth? What is the rationale? What is, the modus on the basis of which one wonders these reports are compiled?
As Professor Nalapat very rightly said, there is this narrative building going around, and it has been going on for many years. It's not something which has happened now. We've seen it when we were abroad also. The focus would always be on focusing on how poor India was, even when things were improving. So even now things are getting better, the focus is on saying how bad it is. Of course, it's not all perfect, but always on what is really bad in India. I think that is a problem. And definitely we are seeing it in this report also. And the criteria that they choose, they are very sort of, not based on realities, ground realities. The criteria, non-vegetarian food and other things, and, criteria which are not really relevant here. And also they never take the PPP, aspect into account. And it's always a kind of negative image. How negative? Pakistan can be better than us, and I'm really thinking it's a little surprising that where there is so much extreme poverty and how much the inflation and everything is so much higher, and they are better and they're more happier than us, and I think that's great. But yes, things are not perfect, and but we have done a great deal, and nobody focuses on that. If you see that they think India tells lies. Most of the time there is this narrative building that India is just projecting, these figures. But very often these are corroborated by others independently also. But still, this narrative building by these particular organizations and who are involved in making these indexes or indices, I think is very, very visible. Okay.
Yes. Is anyone believing these reports, though, Mitali, Nikore? What's the objective, you believe?
Hi, Uday. So I think, I completely agree with Professor Nalapat and Manju ma'am. I mean, it is quite surprising to see the rankings. And also, I don't think that a lot of people, especially in the policy circles, even, belonging to international organizations in India, are paying much heed to these reports. At this point in time, what we're seeing is that these reports are being exactly taken as Professor Nalapat is saying, almost like a little bit of a humorous kind of okay, this has come out, but we're not really sure about the methodology, because a lot of international expats, etc., who represent these organizations are living in Delhi, have also lived in other, capital cities around the world, and they are experiencing the life that we all are experiencing, here in India, and they have very positive things to say. They only see the positive side because they are reporting back to their organizations as well on that. So I think, Uday, the real feedback on the ground, especially from the policy circles, is we should be focusing more on data. And I think, Uday, what we really need to do as a country, and this is something we definitely need to invest in, is our own methods of collection of data on inequalities. When the narrative was being built about female labor force participation, India started measuring female labor force participation a little bit differently, and today the numbers are speaking for themselves. We've increased from 23% to 37% because of better measurement and better data availability. If we can do the same on income inequality, and if we can do the same on wealth inequality, asset inequality, then there is no way that international organizations would not respect our data.
Right. Madhav Nalapat, beg your pardon, actually, let me get in Gautam Mukherjee before I come back to you, Professor Nalapat. Gautam, as far as, of course, these reports are concerned, do you believe the timing is suspicious, given the fact that it's coming so close to the general election? Should that be questioned as well? And what do you make of the report's findings?
Well, earlier, as Ambassador Manju pointed out, it was a matter of saying how poor and wretched India is in every aspect, how it's teeming millions, bad administration, starvation, and the like. Now that the leading agencies, such as the World Bank, IMF, and BRICS, and also the rating agencies, think that India is doing very well. It has the highest growth rate amongst major economies. It is soon going to be number 3 economy in the world by 27 to 2030. It is even possible that by mid-century, it will compete with, if not overtake, the other 2 economies which are ahead of us, the US and China. Now, when this happens, then another narrative is being pushed. That is income disparity, unhappiness. You see, it ignores all the work being done for the masses, the millions that have been lifted out of poverty, extreme poverty, the fact that in another 5 years, there will be nobody in the Indian growing population of already 1.45 billion plus, who will be classified under extreme poverty. All the welfareism is being ignored. The fact that the per capita income, another favorite bugbear, will not only double once, but double twice as the time goes on in the near future at this 7-8% growth rate. All this is ignored. More education, more healthcare, more infrastructure, more facilities for the rural poor, all ignored. Better nutrition, more food. No, nothing. They are starving worse than colonial times. This is the worst kind of propaganda. It is supported, unfortunately, by the communists and the lib left in this country, by those Indians who are working as slaves to the Western narrative and based in Europe and America. They also say this, you see, that this is a cruel joke on the poor of India, that here is Mr. Modi grandstanding and talking of third and one and India surging ahead and Atmanirbhar. But this does not take into account the masses. They are being left behind. They are ignored. They are being, if you like, fooled into thinking that they are part of this. This is complete and utter rubbish, and it is attempted time and again by various of these think tanks who have decided the conclusions before they even begin writing the report. And then they put it out there absolutely shamelessly. Uday.
Yes, indeed. Let me, take that across to Professor Nalapat once again. Who is behind these reports? Do you first read a pattern into these various reports, findings that have emerged? This one, of course, on happiness. We've seen others on hunger, poverty and whatnot earlier too, freedom of expression and press and all of that. Do you believe there's a pattern to all of them, Professor Nalapat? And who is behind this? Who is funding these reports? Who is behind this propaganda?
Look, Uday, there are very powerful, the Sino-Wahhabi lobby, for example, which is totally opposed to India. And there are individuals who are, quote unquote, from the left or whatever. But it is actually obscene to say that we are worse off than under colonial times. Obscene. If you look at the figures for literacy, if you look at the figures for the life expectancy, if you look at the figures for maternal mortality, if you look at schooling, if you look at any of these figures, the colonial era was a dismal, dark era, completely. Now, I come from Kerala. One part of Kerala was ruled by the British, the Malabar part, and the other part was ruled by the royal families. Now, whatever you say about the royal families, to this day, and we are talking after 77, 78 years, Malabar is more backward than Travancore because of the impact of colonial rule in Malabar. So that is the reality of colonial rule. It's utterly obscene, if I may say so, to make this sneering comment that the colonial rule was better. It's, individuals who probably believe, I have no idea what kind of, mental state is driving such views, but it's absolutely total nonsense. You come to Kerala, see a difference between Malabar and Travancore, even today, after nearly 8 decades, and you'll find out. Now regarding inequality, it's a fact that whether it's the United States, whether the United Kingdom, whether it's China, by the way, in a lot of countries, you have got income inequality has been rising, and that is a problem that needs to be fixed. In India, the Prime Minister is trying to fix it by ensuring a floor for consumption, etc. But that does need to be fixed. There's no question about it, because this rising inequality is creating social tensions and is basically, creating a certain amount of, if I may say so, dissatisfaction. I think, but that's not in India. China is, whatever the indexes say, much worse, very much worse. United States, much, much, much worse. UK, horrible. All these countries are horrible. And of course, they only talk about India. Now, one thing I'd like to say very clearly is very simple, that yes, now, I think all of us, I'll speak for you as well, we respect people who give, not people who grab. Just because you got a number of zeros in your bank account is no reason why we should respect you. The number of people you help out of poverty, the number of people you help through education, that is the metric by which you should be judged and respected by society. So I'd like to say very clearly, is not what you grab, but what you give that defines you as a human being, and that deserves and that defines you as someone worthy of respect.
Yes, let me take that back across to Mithali as well. Mithali, do you believe that this is connected with the upcoming general elections, the timing of these reports? Also, do you believe there is perhaps a funding connect to these various reports that have emerged, or you believe that's far-fetched to believe?
So Uday, I wouldn't go so far as to say that because, these are global reports and there are, certain calendars and they are published pretty much every year. So, and I also think that, some of these organizations lack the imagination to link it with the elections, to be very honest. I mean, so I don't think so. But definitely, Uday, I think I fully agree with all the points that have been made so far. I mean, at the end of the day, if you look at, I'll give you one example. Look at some of the border states of our country, right? Many of the border states of our country were made at the time of, the partition. Look at states like Punjab, look at states like Bengal. Before the partition, these were some of the most prosperous states of our country, the maximum amount of trade, the maximum amount of industrial activity. And today, when you look at the income per capita state-wise, then we can see that the maximum decline has happened in some of these border states. Now, why did this happen? This happened because a lot of trade, supply chains, value chains, which were bringing prosperity to these states, were done away with during the colonial rule and post the partition. And partition was the worst price that a country like India had to pay because of the colonial rule. Now, if you had done this survey and published it at the time of partition, I would have believed that our happiness index and inequality were at the levels that are being pegged today. But, it is hard to accept these numbers at this point, when we are at the kind of growth rates that we are showing. But even more than growth rates, Uday, I think when we compare our lifestyles, our optimism, the aspirations of the youth, the aspirations of women, the aspirations of startup founders, the aspirations of MSMEs, marginalized groups finally coming to the fore because they are being given the kind of opportunities that they never received earlier. Definitely, it is quite difficult to say that, the country is not on an upward trajectory. And therefore, it's difficult to accept, this data and these findings.
Okay, let me also, in fact, get a response then from Gautam Mukherjee. Gautam, Mithali, believes that the timing is not connected with the elections, and she's saying that we need to delve a bit more before actually reaching such conclusions. Your response?
Even if it is, they, much against what they would have had, it looks like the ruling party will win again, the third consecutive term. So now it is not a matter of trying to do down the election, because that seems to be more or less a foregone conclusion. But it is to do down the entire policy narrative of India by implying that it is beneficial to a few and ignores the many, which is simply not the case. In fact, it is the very opposite. Yes, we have a large number of millionaires and billionaires. Yes, we have a very large middle class. Yes, we have a very large working population. But all of these are plus points, and we are happy to and proud of them. So for the West to try and use tools which have outlived their utility in order to malign India, this is turning into a laughing matter. You've got more and more investment bankers such as Morgan Stanley and Bloomberg, who are investing in Indian bonds and increasing the allocation in their indexes, so much so that it is estimated that over 50 billion will pour into Indian bonds over the next year to 15 months. Similarly, the momentum in the stock market is now balanced between foreign institutional investors, domestic institutional investors, and the general public, who are a force by their systematic investment plans, as well as their bulk purchases in equity and debt. Now, all of this is just overwhelmingly positive. They cannot ignore all this and keep playing the same tune about, disparity between the haves and the have-nots. When you've got 500 million people in the middle class, which is larger than most of their populations. I think they're suffering from a lack of comprehension. They cannot visualize these numbers and the momentum they create when they see 5% of the population is under 35 and likely to stay that for the next 15 years. Again, they can't compute. So everything is a little beyond their ken right now. So they try to malign us for that.
Ambassador Manju said, do you believe such indices, such reports should be responded to or best ignored? What's the best reaction to them? And is anyone believing them abroad?
Unfortunately, some people do believe it abroad also. Not everyone, but there are certain sections which do believe these reports. And they also join the bandwagon of creating a narrative. Unfortunately, that is the case. But they really do not need to be believed. And I think for that, as mentioned by Mitali, we need to increase our data collection and our data sort of projection of our facts and figures. Make them much more, sort of comprehensive and put it out there for people to see. And already it's happening. It's happening because many other independent agencies have been compiling this and putting it out. But I think the projection is not that sort of loud, I should say. It's just there. And I think we need to focus on that and to also make sure that this, I think, response should be given, but not respond individually, but just to say that, yes, these reports keep coming out, and I don't think they have any legs to stand on, so to speak. I think that kind of response is more than enough for this. Okay.
Yes. Okay. Let me, also get in Professor Nalapat's view on that, on how these reports are best responded to or dealt with. Because this is certainly not the first and it won't be the last either, isn't it?
Well, I do believe that, for example, this comparing us to pre-colonial times, as though the colonial times were paradise, I think these are matters that definitely need to be debunked. And the good news is that there are on social media numerous individuals who understand mathematics and who understand history and who don't talk absolute, imaginary kind of nonsense. So I think that is being done on social media. It does need to be. I don't think the government needs to dignify this kind of thing with a response, because who are these people? I mean, God knows what their agendas are. God knows, what their motives are. But I think that from the point of view of the government, it is best ignored. From the point of view of a news channel, from the point of view of the public, certainly they should be responded to. And the fact that they're just a tissue of lies, and lies that have been constructed to damage the reputation of India at the precise time when a large number of companies are thinking of exiting China and coming to India. Is that a coincidence, Uday? I don't know. It may be a coincidence, it need not be. So at this precise point in time, when India is challenging China as a platform for manufacturing, as a platform for services, as the go-to platform for IT, well, this kind of nonsense coming about the country, well, there are people with motives. Whether these people are the same, I don't know. But I'd like to say they do need a response. And I think lies have to be met with fact and absolute nonsense with truth.
Okay, let me take that across to Gautam for his response, also his take on how these reports should be dealt with, and if we are going to continue to see such reports emerging in the near future too.
I have no doubt such reports will continue and proliferate. But having said that, at the same time, there are a lot of reports coming in with news to the contrary. Amongst the various things I was saying earlier, there's something called the MSCI index, which allocates investments in emerging markets. This has gone up 20% in favor of India and gone down 20% in favor of China. So money is pouring in from the allocations that are made by the West, that is America and Europe, into the emerging markets. Now, there are report after report of this kind as well. Now, the two will have to compete and slug it out. Is it that India is going to hell in a handbasket according to these people, or is it that it is unstoppable, according to many other reports also emanating from the West? So in a way, it isn't just us who have to fight this battle. It is a battle between communist, leftist, anti-Hindu forces in the West and the ones that cannot help but admire the way India is now making progress and at last realizing its full potential. Uday.
All right, appreciate you joining us, all our guests on the broadcast.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.